Yo, what's good? My name is Reginald, aka the R-Star, aka Mr. Straight Fire. And this is Unabashed Reggie's reaction, review, breakdown, analysis to Eminem's Infinite.
Hey yo, my pen and paper cause a chain reaction to get your brain relaxing. The zaniac, the maniac, full of people, MCs are feeble. I came to cause some pandemonium, battle of pandemonium, MCs are standalone. Cause once you make an instant hit, I'm tense to bit and tempted when I see the sins my friends commit.
Now, before we start, remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel. And if you're on Facebook, go like my page and remember to share the content. And something new, I decided to create a Patreon page. Shout out to Canal Riaseo for giving me this idea. So if you enjoyed this content and want to support it, go there on patreon.com/unabashedlyreggie. Thanks in advance. Infinite is the title track of his debut studio album of the same name that was released on November 12, 1996. And in November 2016, they released a remix to celebrate its 20th anniversary. But I don't know, I like the original better because it was dirtier and more gritty. But the original track was produced by the Bass Brothers and Mr. Porter, also known as Con Artist, from D12. That was before the Slim Shady persona, before being on a major label, before meeting Dr. Dre, before My Name Is, before all the fame and glory. Now, the reason why I stress this is so you can understand the context and the era it was released in. The hip-hop of the 90s was very different than the 2000 or current hip-hop. Production was drum-heavy and very minimalistic in terms of melody and sound. Although saying this out loud, I guess we're kind of going back to that if we look at mainstream rap. And lyrically, the 90s were purely about lyricism and also abstract ideas and content. It was about showcasing your vocabulary. That's why you'll see Eminem using quote-unquote big words. And I'll even say that not everything had a definitive meaning because of the abstractness of the lyrics. So in that era, a lot of things were said because they sounded nice and beautiful. And to prove my point, that's pretty much what Eminem said in his book, Angry Blonde, about that song. And I quote, "That was 95, 96, the era of just rhyming for the hell of it. People at one point actually said I sounded like Nas because I used all these big words. This is show your skill type of shit." Before I get into the breakdown and analysis, here's my thought on the song. For me, it's by far the best song on this album. Although I'll admit, I've only listened to Infinite maybe twice, 3 times, but I love the 90s sounds. I don't know why I like this song more than the others, but the beat is so soothing and relaxing. It's smooth, and Eminem's flow as well is smooth. And it's like he just glides on the beat. And I do understand the AZ and Nas comparisons, but I still think his delivery was unique in its own way. Although he does pay a tribute to Nas in the intro when he says, "One time for your motherfucking mind," because this is similar to the hook of Nas' Illmatic song called "One Time for Your Mind." The content is really some battle rap and freestyle stuff. There's not an actual message besides saying how great his rapping is, because that was a lot of what rap was about in those days. And the hook lets us know that when he talks about killing MCs or any sort of violence, it's a metaphor to how great he is as a rapper. So there is a lot of reference to murder and sins. Moreover, he says he's infinite to describe his greatness, so it's in hyperbole to say that his talent cannot be defined. Now, let's break down this song. So what I do is break down the rhyming patterns and then give an explanation or my own interpretation of the lines. With that said, for this song, sometimes there's not a whole lot to explain because some things don't necessarily have a meaning and are said because it just sounds nice, like Eminem kind of said, right? The rhyming pattern in this song for every verse is different than what he does today because he rarely stays on the same pattern for more than 4 bars, and sometimes it only lasts 2 bars. But although he switches patterns a lot, the rhyming is very often a 4-syllable rhyming or more, and that's great. On to the first verse. "My pen and paper cause a chain reaction to get your brain relaxing. The zany acting maniac in action, a brainiac in fact, son." Brainiac meaning someone that is smart. "You mainly lack attraction. You look insanely whack when just a fraction of my tracks run." That beginning is just incredible. It sets the tone lyrically for the rest of the song with that 4-syllable pattern. Notice the small alliteration with the P sound in the beginning with pen and paper. It's not a lot, but it gives that line some punch. And you'll notice he does that in other places as well. With "in fact, son," son doesn't exactly rhyme with the shen sound. So the line after that, he ends with run. So you got fact, son, and tracks run. "My rhyming skills got you climbing hills. I traveled through your mind and to your spine like siren drills. Here's a 3-syllable rhyme with rhyming scales, climbing hills, and siren drills. Climbing hills comes from the expression running for the hills, which is to just leave and run out of fear. So he's saying that his rhyming puts fear into other rappers, and then the next line goes with that. A siren drill has a very loud and high-pitched noise that will give you chills and make you uncomfortable. And the other meaning is that when there's a siren drill or a fire drill, firefighters will go down a pole. So he's traveling down your spine just like they do on a pole. Plus you have the expression sending shivers down someone's spine, meaning to scare them. So it all ties together. I'm sliming grills of roaches with spray that disinfects and twist the necks of rappers till the spinal column disconnects, again with the spine. And again, another 3-syllable rhyme. That's what I like in this song. He rarely settles for 2-syllable rhymes, and that's why it's such a great song in terms of rhyming, and that's why a lot of you guys requested it. And that's why I'm doing it. Put this in decks, check the monologue, turn your system up, twist them up, and indulge in marijuana smog. This is the season for noise pollution, contamination, examination of more cartoons than animation. There's a great alliteration with the S sound. This is the season for noise. Also notice this nice little rhyme with pollution and cartoons then. What he's saying in those 4 bars is simply that right now is the time to just put his music in your car and listen to it while you smoke a joint. But instead of saying it blatantly, he puts it in a nice way. He doesn't say, check my verse. He says, check my monologue. He doesn't say, put this in your car. He says, put this in decks, which is short for tape decks, because before we used to use cassettes. And neither does he say, roll your weed and smoke. He says, twist them up and indulge in marijuana smog. Not smoke, but smog. That's the 90s, where you would use nice words to describe simple things. Plus you got pollution that goes with smog. And on top of that, nice wordplay with homophones, cartoons and cartoon. That's why he says animation. The last 4 bars, he goes back to a nice 4-syllable rhymes around declare invasion. My lamination of narration hits a snare and bass on the track for duck rappers interrogation. When I declare invasion, there ain't no time to be staring gazing. I turn the stage into a barren wasteland. I'm infinite. Notice how he broke down narration and pronounced it narration, so it meshes perfectly with that 4-syllable rhymes. Snare and basin, interrogation, declare invasion, staring gazing. Plus it's an alliteration with the T and D sound. Track for duck rappers, interrogation, declare there ain't no time to be staring, turn the stage. And again, instead of saying his verse before he used monologue, here he uses narration. And laminating is when you cover something with a thin layer of plastic like you would do an important picture, so it's all pristine and shiny. So he describes how he crafts his raps as laminating because he puts care and attention to them. Now, duck rappers interrogation, I'm not 100% sure. But duck is probably a slang for dumb or whack rappers that was used back in Detroit at the time. And interrogation means that they're asking themselves, how can he be this great? Or they just can't understand his lyrics because they are so deep and they are just dumbfounded. Plus, staring gazing goes with the infinite theme because you know the expression gazing at the stars. So when you look at the stars, you're looking at the infinity of the universe. Now, on to the second verse. Nowadays, we're so used to Eminem's last verse to be the best, but I think the second verse is slightly better than the last one. And there are a lot of different patterns, just like the previous verse. But it's the E sound that is predominantly present throughout. Check this out. I let the beat commence so I can beat the sense in your elite defense. I got some meat to mince, a crew to stump, and then to feed the rents. There are so much alliteration in those 2 lines. First with the S's. Commence, so, sense, defense, some, mince, stump, rinse. Then you got all the T's, especially that second line because it gives it that nice bounce. Meat to mince, accrue to stump, and then to feed the rents. Meat to mince comes from the expression making mincemeat of something, which means to destroy or annihilate. And it could also mean having to handle beef with other rappers. So it's another play on meat. And I love how after he's done stumping the crew, there will be a bloodbath. So he'll have to rinse his feet. I greet the gents and ladies, I spoil loyal fans, I foil plans and leave fluids leaking like oil pans. Here we have more alliteration, but this time with the L sound. Ladies, spoil, loyal, foil plans, leave fluids leak like oil pans. And since there's a lot of metaphors about murdering and hurting people figuratively, the fluids could be a reference to blood, but I'm just guessing here. My coil hands around this microphone are lethal. One thought in my cerebral is deeper than a jeep full of people. MCs are feeble. I came to cause some pandemonium. Battle the bandophonium, seize and stand the lonely one. Another case of showcasing extensive vocabulary. He doesn't say one thought from his mind or brain. He uses cerebral. And deeper than a jeep full of people it comes from the expression to roll deep, which means to walk around and move around with a lot of people. So he's trying to say that his lyrics are complex and very deep. Now, the way he rhymed pandemonium, that's my favorite rhyme scheme in this whole song because he takes a 5-syllable word that is uncommon. It's a synonym for chaos, by the way. And with that, he rhymes multiple words with it. Bandophonium seeds, stand the lonely one. Although one is more of a near rhyme, that's why I use a slightly different color, but it's still amazing in my eyes. Plus you got a little alliteration with battle the band, just like pen and paper in the beginning. Imitator, intimidator, stimulator, simulator of data, eliminator. There's never been a greater since the burial of Jesus. Fuck around and catch all the venereal diseases. My thesis, I'll smash a stereo to pieces. In those lines, Eminem lets us know that he intimidates all the fake MCs, the imitators, and that his music stimulates the mind. But I'll be honest, simulator of data, I have no idea what that means. This is the 90s. You don't ask questions if it sounds cool, and guess what? It does. Now, wow, we have a 7-syllable rhyme scheme. That's crazy. The burial of Jesus, venereal diseases, a stereo to pieces. I know I said the pandemonium one was my favorite. Let's call it a tie. And you also have a nice play on the word fuck. He says fuck around in the sense of trying to mess with them, but then follows it with catching a sexually transmitted disease. So that's a play on the literal meaning of fuck. In other words, he's so sick that rappers who beef with him will suffer. My acapella releases classic masterpieces through telekinesis that eases you mentally, gently, sentimentally, instrumentally with entity that mentally meant to be infinite. Oh boy. What a great way to end a rhyme. And pay attention to this more hidden rhyme. Pella releases, telekinesis. And once again, he stays away from saying his verse. Before he used monologue and narration, now he uses thesis to reference his verse. Finally, the last sequence of adverbs is pure 90s, where you just said a bunch of words that pretty much are all spelled the same way so it rhymes easily, like individual, metaphysicals, ritual, spiritual. You know what I mean? And if that sounded familiar, those words were from that parking lot scene in 8 Mile where Mekhi Phifer was rapping as Future. But although it's just a sequence of adverbs, he chose words that had internal rhymes within them, with the N and U sound, sentimentally, instrumentally. Plus, notice how he pronounced gently and added an extra syllable to fit the scheme by saying gently. Now it's time for the last verse. The way he begins the last verse, he switches up the flow for the first 2 bars, and I hear a little Slick Rick in there. Because you know, Slick Rick is somebody that he looked up to when he was growing up. Also, the rhyming he uses helps to give some funk and bounce to the flow. Alright, let's look at it. Man, I got evidence, I'm never dense. Dense means not very smart. And I've been clever ever since my residence was hesitant to do some shit that represents the MO. So I'm assuming all responsibility because there's a monster willing me that always wants to kill MC. Once more, he uses alliteration with the S sounds. And I especially like how the third line sounds like, so I'm assuming all responsibility. Plus, notice how his scheme has the same sound as the previous verse, first 2 bars with the ants rhyme. Here, similar to pandemonium, he takes a word with a lot of syllables like responsibility and makes it rhyme with almost a full sentence. Monster willing me, wants to kill MCs. And MO has a double meaning. The first meaning is short for Motown, which is Detroit. That's why he's saying his residence. And MO is also an abbreviation for the Latin expression modus operandi, which is the way someone operates and is especially used to describe how a criminal performs a murder or a crime. So it all ties with the murder theme. So if you put it all together, Eminem felt that people from Detroit were hesitant to actually rap Detroit and do music with their own sound, but also that they are not trying hard enough to be lyrical. Therefore, he's taking the responsibility by wanting to kill MCs. Mike Nessler, slamming like a wrestler, here to make a mess of her, lyric smuggling embezzler. Mike Nessler, to nestle is to lie comfortably close or against someone, or to put something in a nest. So him being a Mike Nessler means that he's very comfortable and graceful on the mic and also makes it his home, like a bird's nest. Now, slamming like a wrestler. First, the simile is made with wrestling because of the wrestling move called a body slam, where you throw your opponent on the ground. But the wordplay of slamming, I think, is related to poetry slam, which is a competition where people perform poetry in front of judges, which is pretty much like a freestyle battle. So he's saying that his poetry is going as hard as a wrestler slamming someone. That last line simply means that he wants to expose the fake MCs that copies other people's rhyme, and that's pretty much the same thing he said in the previous verse with imitator, intimidator. Personally, I think that's the beauty of that song. He says the same thing a few times, but always in a different lyrical way. Now, the next 4 lines is a rare occasion in the song where he keeps the same pattern for more than 3 lines, with a 3-syllable pattern around act a fool. And what I love the most is that he rhymes them one after another to the point where you think he's saying the same words over and over again. No one is special, my skill is intergalactical, I get cynical, act a fool, then I send a crew back to school, I never packed a tool, which is code for gun, or acted cool, it wasn't practical, I'd rather let a tactful track tickle your fancy. Oh man, I like that. And that's some great rhyming. What he's simply saying is that he doesn't see the value in being portrayed as a gangster or looking cool, he'd rather let his music and skills be what appeals to fans. Tickle your fancy, for those not familiar with that expression, it means that it pleases you, that you enjoy it. In fact, I can't see or can't imagine a man who ain't a lover of beats or a fan of scratching, so this is for my family, the kid who had a cameo on my last jam, plus the man who never had a plan B. The kid who had a cameo, another way of saying a feature, that could pretty much be anyone he collaborated with around that time, but I'd like to think he's talking about Proof, because they were like family. Be all you can be, cause once you make an instant hit, I'm tensed a bit and tempted when I see the sins my friends commit. I'm infinite. That was one amazing way of closing a song, wasn't it? And he finished the song with another metaphor using murder to describe writing great verses, because you have an instant hit, which could be a hit record or an actual hit where somebody gets shot, but it's both, because although he mentions the sins that his friends commit, which refers to a murder, the true meaning is that when he sees his peers or friends doing great music and kill verses, that makes him feel a little insecure at first, but then pushes him to do the same and even better. Now, that was the end of that verse. That's it, folks. Another classic Eminem song in the book, Infinite. I hope you enjoyed it. And like I said in the beginning, please go on Patreon if you want to show me your support. But if that's not something you can afford, then it's okay. Just subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share it with your friends. And leave a comment, a suggestion. Is there something that I missed in that song, or you have another interpretation? But until then, thanks. It's been real.